Hi everybody, Fee Hills here and welcome. My name is, as I just said, Fee Hills as a co-founder of Mind Nudger AI, or one of them. And today for the next 30 minutes, really going to be focused on, I've called it a 3-step guide to designing a first mind nudging journey, following on from last week's mini masterclass. And what I will say is this is more of an approach to that design, because obviously in 30 minutes we can cover so much ground. And I think it's really important to understand that transition from more traditional programs to transitioning over to sort of micro learning, especially experiential type micro learning approach, and especially when it's blended. So today I really want to cover what needs to be considered before even doing it and being prepared to do it so that you maximize the learning experience for participants and cohorts, and also so that you get the best outcomes. So we have had problems. Now, this is really unfortunate. The Learning Week 2024, the Monday, the start of it, we've actually had problems with StreamYards. I've been on with Tony this morning, Tony Day. And so I'm hoping this is going to go okay. Please let me know if it doesn't. So let's move on. So I want to start with the approach to consideration and understanding before embarking. So it's very clear outcome on the designing of a mind nudging journey. Now, just to explain, a mind nudging journey is a sort of blended experiential continuous learning journey, which obviously really fits in with the learning sort of power theme of Learning in Work Week, which is great for lifelong learning and continuous learning. And that's because it's extremely timely as to what we need when we're moving more into exponential change. So what I've put down as a title, sort of introduction to what we're going to learn is human complexity is messy. And whilst that might sound negative, it's true. So learning and growth in the AI world is really about shifting to an experiential journey for transformative and continuous learning. Whilst we all know that in theory, we may not know how to take what we've spent years on doing, often have an amazing program and content. How do we shift that over, and should we shift it over? And what's the benefit to you of shifting over? What's the benefit to the participants and the organization? These are all things that need to be understood before embarking on a journey. So the challenge I've put down here is to provide an iterative approach to learning and growth that supports people through exponential learning and change. So that's the only reason to shift from more traditional form of type of PowerPoint workshops, maybe interactive training, to a more experiential approach to it. Now, just to give you a bit of context here, we have been developing over the last 4 years the world's first mindset navigation platform. And we call it that because that's what it does. So it speeds up, scales, and sustains mindset transformation for cohorts, well, for individuals as well, but really we focus on groups and organizations, so wide scale change. And we really support learning professionals and change professionals to make that happen with their uniqueness in whatever subject they're working in. And really we're focused on increased engagement, increased psychological safety in learning as well, accelerated learning outcomes, individualized learning or personalized learning, measuring that mindset and behavior change and skills development, which is something we can now do. So massive benefit is we can now do that because of AI and technology. That's a good thing. And real world application and execution. So this is in many ways what's missing from traditional learning. But, we're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, as it were, as we say in the UK, which is really is traditional learning, all out the window. Of course not. Is information-based training not necessary? Of course it's necessary, but it's out of balance for iterative change and habit development, which is what we need urgently now. And we need that at scale. And that's the other thing. It's all very well one by one doing that. That's way too linear, when the problems of in behavior change and mindset change and human-centric skills development are just so vast. So I'm showing you a journey, and actually we had technical problems showing this in just the last session with Tony, like half an hour ago, which was his journey from Future Vision. Tony Dane, look him up. Empathy in customer experience, the front line, and he's developed this journey. So I wanted to just show you this to give you a picture, speaks 1,000 words. So it starts at orientation, and each week there is a theme which leads by a mind nudge theme. So we focus on that one frame of mind change or skills development or whatever is pertinent during that week. So you're not only learning and becoming more aware of that particular thing that's so important, whatever it may be for that subject, but you're also being able and given time and space to safely embed that and really execute on that and commit to that behavior change before moving on to another mind nudging theme. So it breaks down into sort of themes. And once we understand that, we can then start breaking it down. Okay, so what's the blend? How do we build a journey? Because every single journey is going to be unique to the needs of the participant and the needs of that market. And so the needs of complexity to what you're looking for both experience, that balance between learning experience and learning outcomes. Because they're both important. We want people to stay there to develop, and they're only going to stay there if it's a good experience. But anyway, one mind nudge theme a week is what we work upon, because what we've tested and validated over the throughout 2023 was that was about the right balance. Any more than that, it was too much. So I'm going to break this down for you, so don't worry. And so when we look at also the blended journey, so when we're looking at a whole journey, we're looking at one particular theme per week. So you can see here we've got 6 weeks mind nudging journey, particularly to get an outcome in empathy and develop people in CX on the front line. But we also need to get that blend right, because if we just did mind nudging, and that's really takes care of the introspective side of development, which is really important, we then don't get the social interaction, which loses the learning that way, or we don't get the togetherness of the cohort changing together. So we really have to look at the balance between social learning and introspection to get this right, which is why when we built the platform, we have facilitated the introspection journey and being able to support that with a pop-up system. I'll explain what the pop-up is as we're going along. And also shared thinking pods, which takes care of really that social interaction as we're going about our day. So social learning, but really social thinking and learning. Just to be clear, because everybody here, I would imagine, knows the role of a facilitator. It isn't much different here. It's to guide individuals and cohorts through the blended mind nudging journey. I suppose the difference, and we put it there, is on the go. So we're really talking about as they go about their day, the facilitator is sherpering them through that journey, through the system. Now, so let's go to step one, because we said 3 steps. The first step I want to talk about to explore the complexities of the audience, of your audience, in terms of the learning experience and the outcomes, and finding the balance between these 2 things. So let's take a look at that, what that looks like. So mind nudging, we've got design options. We can either redesign something completely, or we can augment it. So we might have scenario 1, we might have a program that we really love and it primarily works, like we're doing workshops or something like that, maybe a bit of digital follow-up, but what we're finding is that it's not really embedding or measuring, and that is giving us a problem in terms of maybe our clients, or be they internal or external. So we really need to sit there and consider, why am I building this journey? Am I building it to augment, or am I building it from scratch? So I'm not considering what I've already got, either because I haven't got a training program and would like to have one, or I have got one, I want to keep it, and how can I augment it with the type of mind nudging journey? So that's the question we ask ourselves. Do you want to augment your current program or design a journey from scratch? Question number one. Question number two is, what are the accessibility, logistics, and cultural and other unique needs of the audience? Because sometimes, whilst that might seem obvious, it's less important when we're doing traditional learning than it is now if we move over to this type of journey, because it's blended and it's quite complex, but that's why we can speed up scale and sustain the change. So therefore, we need to be very mindful about the needs of and the wide needs of our audience before we start putting together or designing a mind nudging journey. Now, we ask ourselves also, is it a one-off journey that we're creating? Again, for a client, internal or external, or do we want to create something more continuous? Because if we do, that will change how we're going to design this particular journey. So they're the sort of broad level considerations. Now, if, by the way, either on recording or live, if you want these slides, just DM me and I will, of course, share them, because some people just like to get a reminder in that way. Also on step one, journey creation process. We're trying to keep it simple, but you have to have these sort of 7 things, which is determine the objectives, no different to a normal training program. We have to understand what are the objectives of the outcome, define the audience. So sometimes we may have to design slightly different journeys of the same subject for different audiences. So that has to be considered. Plan the duration and schedule. Again, this comes down to logistics. So if we plan the duration and schedule, we might think, well, the best way to get this learning outcome here is 12-week journey. But we may find that that doesn't suit the logistics of the audience. So that's a massive consideration. Can we split it to 2 6-week journeys? Can we do it in a different way? Can we speed it up? Because they may not have time to run any sort of intensive journey. So do we take longer? So all of these are massive considerations. We can't just look at the subject and the content, which by now, and imagine it's pretty obvious. But I think in traditional learning, you almost can, because you've got them in a space, maybe a workshop or something like that, and you're working with them. Or we're giving them digital information-based development in which they can go and watch in their own time. So it becomes less of an issue. Here it is an issue a bit. Developing the challenge statement. So what's the challenge they're facing? I want to make sure I'm really meeting that need, both for the organization and the participants taking part, so we can engage them. Identifying the key steps, and of course, mapping that user journey. This matters. Mapping the participant journey is massively important, and combining mind nudges to create your journey. So right at the end, we've got that, and we say, right, okay, so we've got a 6-week journey here. We prefer 6 weeks because it feels more digestible and manageable. And then we can have a break and maybe do another 6 weeks or a booster. So combining mind nudges means, what are the themes, those weekly themes I just talked about on Tony's journey, that are going to reap the most effective outcomes together and are going to compound over that 6 weeks. So I learn one theme or technique or skill in week 1 and I embed that. What would be the next one to combine with that would give me maximum result for the use of me priming my mind with that new thought or technique or whatever it may be? So combining mind nudges is really important, but we can sort of do that once everything else is in place. Now, what I do appreciate is that no one's going to go away from here and be able to immediately design a mind nudging journey. But as I said, these are really about considerations. So step 2 is considerations for designing the structure of your journey. Let's take a look. Now, I don't have to go through all of these today. And as I said, what if you want these slides, apart from just watching them on a recording, you can actually DM me and I will actually send you the slides, or even better still, we could put it on our website. You can just download it. But starting at number 1, a structure, we choose the number of phases in our journey. So think about designing any traditional learning program. We do it obviously in a structure. So we tend to have what's called a framework. It really is the same here. We call it a structure. We call it a stepped structure because it is a journey. But effectively, it works like a framework. So if we took a subject like empathy in CX, sticking to the same theme, then we will have certain things that they must have in that framework. So what does the framework look like? And then we start populating it with themes, and then we can start to build the blend in of our journey. So we can, step 2 is choose or create the mind nudging concepts or themes that go in each phrase. So once we've built our framework, it's actually quite easy, or should we say simple, to start putting the themes in. Now, what I'm going to do next week is actually go through a mind nudge itself to help you understand what it is, so we can break that down. And once you understand this and this together, then it becomes a little bit more simple to understand, right? How do we build a journey? So then we choose the order of the themes. So as I've said, we may start off in week 1 as looking at the critic in empathy, or the critic for ourselves. And then in 2, we don't want to jump to something that doesn't follow on from that, which again seems logical. It's something we would do in traditional learning, but here we're doing it in minute bits. So we really need to consider it and somehow build a transition from one thing to another. So in other words, how do I go from this theme and connect it to the next week's theme? So let's say I'm looking at being self-critical in week 1 and how to stop doing that. In week 2, I might learn a technique for developing deeper levels of self-compassion. That's an idea of how that connects, and then build that over the weeks with the different sort of empathic techniques and skills that I might need. 4 is lay out the structure of the journey, and we get to the very practical side. So the way we build it is we build it in shared documents where it becomes like a work in progress, and pretty much build the mind nudging in. But I'm not going to talk about that too much this week, because that is next week's subject, where I actually do break down a mind nudge and help you understand what it is. So as I said, going through here, we have this structure. You can go through it. You can DM me for the actual structure and the slides, and I think it would be really, really helpful. Okay, let's move on. So step 3, after you've built the actual structure of the journey itself, is choosing the balance between the blend of your mind nudging journey. Now, if you watched last week's session, I talked about everything that goes into a typical mind nudging journey. So this week we're going to talk about, so how do we actually blend it together? And when we talk about the balance of the blend of your mind nudging journey, we've got the options in the journeys to do mind nudging itself, so mind nudging themes, and then the pop-up sessions, which are like experiential learning sessions between 30 and 60 minutes typically, which are facilitated sessions pretty much on Zoom or Teams, but inside the platform. whether you add resources into it, how much information and context do you want with that for that mindset and behavior change. Shared thinking. So how do I balance it out with shared thinking? If so, how much balance does that need? Now, I've given you sort of just 3 diagrams because I said picture speaks 1,000 words, and you can see you can do it in many ways. If I were doing a journey where I had a traditional training program that I wanted to help embed better, in other words, execute the learning, embed the learning, then I may just use this very simple add-on to augment the program that I already have. So now we start to bring this together and say, okay, so what's the application of this mind nudging? And go, I've got a traditional leadership program that works really, really well. I'm very happy with the content. The clients are very happy with the content, only they would like to see more of a blended approach, and they'd like to be able to measure the outcome and the experience and with the analytics, and they would also like to see that execution. So how do I know it's working, in other words? And this is where this blend becomes important, because once I start augmenting something, clearly we can't just stick a mind nudging journey on the end. We have to make it relevant to what that learning program is and build the mind nudging so it embeds the learning that we have developed in this particular program. And that's why I say the blend becomes so important here, because once we've been through a training program and done, I'm going to give you an example, 3 days in a classroom or 2 days in a classroom, which still happens less, but it does happen. Or maybe I've done 3 workshops of 90 minutes each, but it was more traditional. Even if it was virtual or face-to-face, it's still relatively distinct and relatively linear. But I like the messaging that was going across. It was, people had a good time, they came together, there was a lot of learning that happened. So how do we embed that learning when they go back to work? So the development of the ongoing embedding has to be extremely aligned to that program. And therefore, what I wouldn't do in that case when the blend comes in is I probably wouldn't add any more pop-up sessions. Why? Because they've just gone through a whole program. They don't need to have, I'm not saying every time, but they probably don't need to have any more sort of virtual sessions. But what they do need is the mind nudging, and what they do need is the ongoing shared thinking, so that they can share learning and share experiences and action what they've learned off that training program. And that's the big thing here. What we're really talking about in experiential process is observe, reflect, where the learning goes on, action or adapt. We call this aura, which is observe, reflect, action. So how do they take the learning that you use so greatly as an expert taught them and embed it and execute it into real life behavior change back in the workplace? And that's what mind nudging journeys are about when it comes to augmenting what you're already doing. So this is the type of blend that I would pick for an embedded program, wherever it was from scratch program, and I want them to have the information, the resources, they've not been through any training, they're just coming into a mind nudging journey and doing it that way, then you're probably going to include orientation, pop-up sessions, experiential sessions, mind nudges so they can do that, so they're going about their day. And of course, get them as a cohort to share that learning, that thinking and experience. Now, you might be saying at this point, how long does this all take? So mind nudging typically takes 30 minutes per week. And the shared thinking, it's ongoing. So the mind nudging, the shared thinking is really on the go. So they can do it as they're going about their day. On a Monday, they get a mind nudge and it primes the mind with the idea. They observe. Wednesday, they get a reflective mind nudge to reflect on what they observed Monday, Tuesday, and then by Friday, they're putting their action in. But it is all on the go. So we estimate it takes about 30 minutes a week to do the mind nudging, and the shared thinking depends how much they want to share. So if they're in a very close cohort, they may share a lot more, and that's up to them, but they're doing it on the train or they're doing it as they're going about their day. The pop-up sessions, they do take time out. So if that's half an hour or 45 minutes, then in a typical journey of 6 weeks, we may have 3 of them. So you see, time, mind nudging is not time resource hungry. It really is about iterative learning. It really is about iterative development. And it really is about habit change, embedding learning, and execution. And that's the main objective. This other one over here, I was just giving you another option here. Could just be pop-up mind nudges and shared thinking without the resources. And by the way, there could be a million different types of blends. I'm just giving you literally a view of this. Now we've got 4 minutes left, and I just want to bring you back to Tony's journey of empathy in CX, and you can almost like bring to life or consolidate what I've been talking about in terms of, he starts his journey with orientation session. In many cases, this is going to be live. In certain cases, if it was an open program, it may not be because it wouldn't fit everyone to be there. Again, that's flexible. But I know Tony spends quite a lot of time on the orientation because it sets the whole context up, expectation, and really helps everybody get the best out of the journey. So lots of work on preparation to ensure they can go off quite confidently and safely, harnessing the power of that journey. So week 1, to catch a critic. That's the theme. Week 2, emotion spotting. So you can say this is quite gamified. Think of mind nudging themes or mind nudges as mind games that really prime the mind as you're going about your day. And week 3, he's got get out of my own way. Week 4, he's got perspective taker. Week 5, he's got mood alert. And week 6, he's got motive action to finish upon. Where the blend comes in, you can see he's got 3 workshops that are run every 2 weeks throughout the 6 weeks journey. And of course, to support all that, he's got the shared thinking pods in the background. So he has built it like this because he's dealing with frontline people who don't have much time, and they're on real-time operation environments, which most likely will not have the time to dedicate to, say, a 2-hour workshop or whatever it may be. So this is carefully designed so that they can do it in their downtime and so forth. So this particular journey is designed for this particular application. So I do hope that makes sense. Okay, so what I will say is that I'm going to put plenty of resources on our website. Our website is mindnudger.com. I know you've got the own website then. Mindnudger.com, or it does get there from mindnudging.com as well. And we're also going to put these lives there, so you can sort of go there, subscribe, and every time we're doing anything with a particular, be it an event or we're releasing a document of any type, a guide, that will be from our website. And if you're subscribed on there, we're going to notify you or send you the information. So please do that. And whatever happens this week, please do have a fantastic Learning in Work Week 2024. And thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.